A very good morning. You are watching KBC Channel 1 and are in time for live proceedings from the National Assembly. It is Wednesday, the 6th day of November. The year is 2019. As it is the norm, Wednesday morning reserved for private members' bills and motions. And of course, because of that, we have a number of motions, about 5, and several bills, including 2 on the Finance Bill 2019 that would in essence decide the fate of the interest rates cap. And what happened is that Parliament was forced to adjourn the sittings after members of Parliament walked out. This is because that particular law was passed without any amendments to the President's reservations. The legislators had attempted to retain the limits on interest rates at 14%, and at least 233 of them were required, which is 2/3 of the House. And of course, they could not raise that number. Only 161 members were in the House at the time of voting, and so that bill sailed through. It will be forwarded to the President for assent, and which basically means that the setting of their interest rates will be at the discretion of commercial banks. And there has been raging a debate that high interest rates are weighing down borrowing from small and medium enterprises. And so we await, or Kenyans await, to see how that will pan out. Among the issues lined up for debate this morning is a decision on a motion on policy measures to ensure 100% transition from secondary education to tertiary education. It is sponsored by Kirinyaga Central Member of Parliament, Honorable John Wambogo. It is one that seeks to ensure that once students are done with secondary education, then they automatically proceed to the next level of advancing their education, which is a timely motion considering currently over 1 million students are sitting their Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education, and this means that they will then have a chance to move forward. A live broadcast, private members' bills, the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Amendment number 2 Bill, National Assembly Bill number 72 of the year 2019. It is sponsored by the Honorable Cyrus Tiren, and it seeks to amend the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act so that managers, chief executive officers, directors of public institutions are held personally liable for running down institutions. And this legislation also seeks to completely bar anyone convicted of an offense under the Act from holding office as a public or state officer. The other is the Breastfeeding Mothers Bill, National Assembly Bill number 74 of the year 2019. It is sponsored by Murang'a County Member of Parliament, Honorable Sabina Shege, and it seeks to provide a legal framework to facilitate mothers breastfeed their children at the workplace. And it notes the right of the mother to breastfeed freely or express milk for her infant, and it requires employers to provide breastfeeding employees with lactation rooms to either breastfeed or express their milk for their children. It is a timely bill, so to speak, and considering that the Parliament of Kenya is one of the institutions that has in place a creche, a reserved area where mothers or fathers with young children, they can come with them to the workplace, and they are left at the creches under the care of nannies who are hired for that purpose. And so if this bill is approved by the House, then it will facilitate for the mothers to take some time off and be in a comfortable environment so that they're able to breastfeed their children and even, or child, and even express that milk for use later. Among the motions pending before the National Assembly this morning is one by the Honorable John Mutunga, Member of Parliament, Tigania West. It is on the registration of farmers and formation of agribusiness entities for improved benefits and sustainable food and nutritional security. Members already began discussions on this issue, and that was last Wednesday. And he's just generally seeking the support and facilitation of farmers to lobby them, mobilize them, ensure that they are organized in groups that can enable them benefit, even as they undertake this noble cause of ensuring that the country's food basket is full. Nominated member Honorable Godfrey Ososi has a motion pending before the House, one that seeks to review and formulate a comprehensive policy and structure to harness the ever-increasing diaspora resources for national development, and noting that the formal remittance from the Kenya diaspora account, or rather accounts for over 3% of the country's gross domestic product, that is channeled by an estimated 3 million Kenyans who are in foreign countries. And so his argument is that there is need to harness these resources to ensure that the country benefits. Especially the socio-economic aspect of it. This morning, members shall also be seeking answers from a number of ministries as listed in the questions section. There will be a question by private notice from the member for Kilifi South, Honorable Richard Kenchonga. He'll be seeking answers from the Cabinet Secretary, Interior and Coordination of National Government. And this is regarding the status of investigations into the disappearance of one Suma Nyondo Saidi and one Samuel Riango, who were allegedly last seen while being arrested by police officers within the precincts of Shanzu Law Courts. And that was after a mention of a case regarding the disputed land. He seeks to know what steps the ministry is taking to ensure that the missing persons are located and reunited with their families. In the ordinary questions section,
afternoon sittings on Tuesday, November 12th and Wednesday, November 13th, and instead to hold sittings on Tuesday, November 12th in the morning.
Royal?
When I move the
Order number
Honorable
7.
Mboko, that question you'll be able to ask it in the afternoon when the he'll give, I'm sure he has good reason. Let's proceed. Next order.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
Honorable members, the first question is question number 044 by the Honorable Richard Ken Chonga, member for Kilifi South. Very well. The Honorable Chonga, you'll have another opportunity. I think you are trying to settle down. We'll move on to the next question by the Honorable Makali Mulu, member for Kitui Central.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to ask question number 470 of 2019, which is directed to the Cabinet Secretary for the National Treasury and Planning. The first question, Honorable Speaker, could the Cabinet Secretary provide the status of formulation of the monitoring and evaluation policy, noting that the government has adopted resource-based management as a key driver of development programs in the country? Question 2, what measures has the ministry put in place to ensure that there is an existing policy framework to guide feedback on the effectiveness of implementation of the development programs set out in the third medium-term plan of the Vision 2030 and the Big Four programs, namely manufacturing, food security and nutrition, universal youth coverage, and affordable housing as unveiled by the President in 2017. The last question, what challenges have caused delays in publishing the monitoring and evaluation policy? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That question will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning. The next question is by the Honorable Benjamin Tayari, Stephen Tayari, Member of Parliament for Kinango.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to ask question number 471 of 2019, directed to the Cabinet Secretary for Transport, Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development. Could the Cabinet Secretary explain why quarries and other excavations dug during the construction of the standard gauge railway have not been filled up or rehabilitated since the completion of the project, especially those along the railway in Kinango constituency? Roman 2.
Even when you are, like now, when you bring inputs, it's very difficult, like I have a good example when the Minister of Agriculture brought fertilizers for coffee farmers. This fertilizer was to be actually had to be taken to cooperative societies for them to distribute, because you cannot be able to give each individual farmers, because even on issue of accountability. So with those few remarks, I would want to support and thank you for giving this chance to contribute. Thank you.
The Honorable Wanyonyi, member for Westlands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also want to contribute to this motion. Mr. Speaker, organized farmers anywhere in the world, they have a lot of benefits. And it also empowers farmers, Mr. Speaker, to be able to market their produce and also have economic base, which will see many organizations collapse. We have seen even factories that...
The type of crops that our farmers are producing in this country are not known. And therefore, we even have the gaps on what we are producing and what we import from other countries. For example, the issue of maize, Mr. Speaker, because we do not know how many farmers are growing maize. And therefore, when we have the country importing maize from other countries, Mr. Speaker, you find that we'll have excess, and therefore the prices of the local farmers become too low, and therefore they make losses. Mr. Speaker, sir, if we have farmers being registered in this country, we'll be able to know even how much we'll need for livestock feeds. But when we don't have the data for the farmers, then that's where we have the gap, and we have the livestock feeds not catered for. Mr. Speaker, sir, also when we come to the cash crops, for example, coffee. Coffee is ailing in this country because One, we do not even know how many farmers are in small-scale farming, the large-scale farmers. They do not also have associations. They cannot have a voice for the market. Mr. Speaker, in 1980s, Kenya was producing over 180 metric tons of coffee. Today, we are producing less than 39,000 metric tons. This is because no one is caring about the farmer, and therefore, because they are not organized, they cannot have a voice on what they are producing. Mr. Speaker, farmers of this country grow anything on their farms, and therefore, they have many enterprises despite the size of the holding. If we organize our farmers, for example, we know like in Trans Nzoia that farmers grow maize. If they are registered and we have the data, we'll be able to know in Trans Nzoia how many bags of maize will be produced. And therefore, even when it comes to the issue of subsidies, Mr. Speaker, if we do not have a data for our farmers who are growing maize, it becomes too difficult even to issue the fertilizer subsidies and other subsidies to the farmers. And therefore, these subsidies will benefit the cartels. But if we have data for our farmers, then these farmers will be able to benefit. Mr. Speaker, the House this House passed the warehouse receipt bill earlier this year, and this will provide the establishment of warehouse and collection of farm products into the warehouse. That's checking in products in the whole essence of receipt. Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, I agree with those who have spoken before me that the farmer registration and organization is not a government affair. We need to entrust their umbrella body to conduct that exercise. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, the Honorable Kago. The Honorable Waluke, member for Sirisia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Long time. The economy of Kenya depends to the farmer, Mr. Speaker. Point of order. It's a point of order.
The Honorable Ngatha, what is out of order?
Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand on a point of order, standing order number 35. I would like to point that the House has no quorum, Mr. Speaker, and I request your indulgence. Thank you.
The Honorable Beatrice Ngatha, you are absolutely right. I see that we have again lost quorum. I therefore direct that the quorum bell be rung for 10 minutes. And the honorable members who are in the House, you, of course, according to our own rules, you will not leave until we have completed that process of raising quorum.
Stand by na quorum. Tumesha kupatia feed.
A quorum hitch in the National Assembly this Wednesday morning. It is live proceedings from the August House. It is the second time we have the quorum bell ringing this morning. Remember, a minimum 50 members are required in order for business to be transacted in the House. It is a requirement of the standing orders approved by members of this National Assembly. And earlier, when we had that quorum bell ringing, it was to rally members to come in and constitute a quorum in order for business to be transacted in the House. They did that. They kicked off proceedings with a number of questions, and also they put the question to and approved a motion by Kirinyaga Central Member of Parliament Honorable John Wambugu on policy measures to ensure 100% transition from secondary education to tertiary education. This is a motion that is meant to, if approved, supplement the existing 100% transition from primary to secondary school for Kenyan children to facilitate access to quality education. Members also did a witness introduction in the House of two bills, private members' bills at that, the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Amendment Number 2 Bill, National Assembly Bill Number 72 of the year 2019, sponsored by Honorable Cyrus Tiren, and the Breastfeeding Mothers Bill, National Assembly Bill Number 74 of the year 2019, sponsored by Murang'a County Women Representative Honorable Sabina Shege. Just before this second round of quorum bell ringing, members were discussing the registration of farmers and formation of agribusiness entities for improved benefits and sustainable food and nutrition.